Allahu, 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 Allah. Allahu, 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 Allah. Allahu, Allah.
So to continue, if someone has coronavirus or any other disease, what is one supposed to do when they pass away? What is the thing to do in regards to their janazah?
Bismillah. So no doubt when a Muslim passes away, we have obligations towards him or her. There's the obligation to wash the body, the ghusl. There is the obligation of shrouding the body. There's the obligation of the janazah salah, and then the burial. Okay. In the current situation, if somebody passes away from the coronavirus, then it makes things more complicated. Okay, and I've already had people asking me questions and speaking about scenarios that have come up. So what should be done in this very specific circumstance? So obviously this is a fast changing situation, and we have to look at what the situation is at any given point in time to answer that specific question or any given circumstances. But first of all, we need to see, will the authorities release the body to us or not? Okay, because the question that came to me is that they will release it, but they're recommending cremation. Okay, now, so if the authorities, as things developed, if it comes to a point that they just will not release the body at all, and they're going to deal with it themselves, okay, then if they're going to cremate the body, then we can make a supplication, we can make dua for the deceased, but there's nothing else we can do. Okay, if they won't release the body to us, but they will bury the body, then obviously we want to know where the body is buried, inshallah ta'ala, and people can visit the grave, for example, and certainly supplicate. And in the Hanafi madhab, it is also possible to do janazah over a person who's been buried and there was no janazah for that individual. There's a ruling in the Hanafi madhab. So, we will follow that. These are in situations where we've got no choice, we've got no say in the matter, they're going to keep the body. Okay. When they're making recommendations, but ultimately they will release the body to us if we insist upon it, okay, then what needs to happen, as I spoke about in the previous initial video on this particular virus, that legal rulings, when it relates to health issues, have to be dictated or informed by, I think this is the better way of putting it, informed by medical experts. Okay, so in that kind of situation, what should the family do before the body is released? Before they take the body, they should speak to a Muslim doctor, but a Muslim doctor who is knowledgeable of Islam. Don't have to be a scholar, but knows has studied the basics of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, appreciates and understands the importance of ghusl and janazah and kafan and these kind of things, and then seek the advice of this person, and this person can advise. And I'll go into some detail in a moment, but this is a very, very important principle, which is, we do say when it comes to medical issues, we obviously will give consideration to what medics are generally saying, medical experts are generally saying, but when it comes to the legal ruling, we will go to Muslim doctors. Now, why this is so important, and I've in the last few days been flooded with information, all kinds of advice and such things. Okay. And all kinds of discussions going on. Should we have Jummah? Should we not? Should we have madrasa? Should we not? Those kind of things. This is very, very important for us to bear in mind. The reason we go to Muslim doctors is because we believe that the Muslim doctor is not going to think about the medical aspect of it alone. Okay, he's going to consider both. He's going to weigh things up a lot better. Okay, that's why, for example, somebody who's unwell and doesn't know whether he should fast or not, she should fast or not, they go to a Muslim doctor and ask advice, because the doctor's then weighing up, well, fasting is obligatory, and how much discomfort can it cause this person? Or is it a threat to life? Or is it discomfort? Or, what are the dangers? And there's that balancing act going on. So, this is my advice to Muslim doctors as well, is that the reason we come to you is because we believe you're going to balance everything. And that is very, very important when Muslim doctors are advising Muslims or Muslim institutions. That needs to be borne in mind. And it can't just be, well, this is best practice for keeping the virus in check, and that's the only thing I'm going to think about. Of course, we want to keep the virus in check, inshallah ta'ala, but it's a balancing act. So that's important. But anyway, let's go back to the point. So, if the Muslim doctor or doctors, it'd be good to ask a number of them, says to one, well, it's just too dangerous and you should have nothing to do with it whatsoever, and you should let the authorities deal with it, okay, and let them bury the deceased, for example, okay. Again, I would take 2 or 3 opinions at least regarding this. I wouldn't just ask one Muslim doctor. But if that's what they're saying, then that's what they're saying, and legal rulings have to be based on that, okay. However, if they say, well, no, as long as you're being careful, you've covered your mouth, for example, you've got gloves on, you don't touch your face, etc., you can do it, then khair, we will abide by those precautions and we'll go ahead and do it, okay. If their advice is, well, no, it's too dangerous, the only way it can be done is to find people in the community who have already been affected by the virus and now are immune to it, okay, and it's safe for them to do it, then that's what we're going to do. You see, my point here is we're not going to, go to one extreme or the other. We're not going to say, we don't care about the virus, these are obligations, we're just going to go ahead. Why? Because we have this principle in our deen, things which are normally obligatory, okay, the ruling can change based on circumstance. We know, for example, normally wudu is obligatory for salah. In particular circumstances, you make dry ablution, you make tayammum, okay. Normally certain types of food are haram, okay. In particular circumstances, if there's no other food available and you're going to die, they become halal. This is why we have a principle in fiqh which says that the prohibited can be permitted in situations of necessity, okay. So we're not going to go to that extreme that we don't care about the virus, we don't care about this, we don't care about anything, these obligations, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed illness, He's decreed illness. That's absolutely true. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed illness for a person, he's going to get ill. But we follow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that better than anybody, that if illness is decreed, you're going to become ill. But I'd refer people back to the first talk on coronavirus. It's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to avoid illness as much as one can, inshallah. So, whatever advice that they give, we will give that consideration. So we don't go to this extreme, we won't go to the opposite extreme as well. Well, the only thing we're going to think about is what's, the absolute most cautious thing to do in this circumstance. You see, because even governments across the world, they're not taking that approach. They're trying to be balanced in their own way. Should we close down schools or should we not close down schools? Well, we don't want to rush it because it affects people's education, and that's also important. For example, there's a balancing act even, in decisions governments are making. So certainly Muslims, when we're speaking about these kind of things, there must be that balancing act. Okay, so we're not going to say, oh, this is more cautious, so let's just do that and let's not think about anything else. No, balance these things, inshallah ta'ala. And if there's a way of doing it, it should be done. The last point I want to make for now is people should understand, should have a knowledge of the fiqh of janazah, the rules of janaiz, ghusl and kafan and these kind of things. And, people who have that knowledge and have studied that, you will know that there's a difference between what is fard, obligatory, in the janazah, and what is recommended. And in these kind of circumstances, it may well be the case you limit yourself to the fard. In the Hanafi madhab, the fard of washing the body is just to make sure the entire body is covered by water once. Okay, and that's if one were to follow that, that's going to lead to much less exposure than if we follow all of the recommendations. For all of the recommendations, you're going to have to, get very close to the body, you're going to have to touch the body. Here you can do the janazah without touching the body. You can have a pipe or something like that, water flowing from it. You can be at some distance and apply water to the entire body. For the coffin, it's going to be more difficult. But again, these are things that people should give consideration to, rather than a blanket, no, we're not going to have anything to do with it whatsoever, or yes, we don't care about the disease, we're just going to go ahead and do what we want to do.